Good day, Crime Talk aficionados. This is Scott Reisch of Crime Talk. Today I want to talk about Mr. Chris Watts one more time and to see if Mr. Patrick Frazee learned anything from him. Let's talk about it. Good afternoon, Crime Talk aficionados. This is Scott Reisch of Crime Talk. Today I want to talk one more time about the Christopher Watts case. Now, I know what you're saying. A lot of people are like, oh, I don't want to hear another Christopher Watts case. But what I'd like to do today is simply compare it to the Patrick Frazee and the Kelsey Berreth disappearance case down in southern Colorado, because I think a lot can be taken from it, and I think you can see why Chris Watts was doomed from the beginning and why Mr. Frazee, whether you like him or not, and whether you think he's done something or not, and we will give him the presumption of innocence, he is only accused of a crime, as to why he has a shot of making these charges go away. So let's first focus on Mr. Christopher Watts. Now, everyone is probably very familiar with the case of Mr. Watts. He killed his wife, Shanann, and his two young daughters, and his unborn child, to allegedly be with his mistress, with whom he had fallen in love with. Now, in the discovery photographs, there's several photos, and Shanann and Mr. Chris Watts, and I use that term Mr. rather loosely, so none of you will be offended out there, they look relatively happy. Okay. Now, it's also very clear that Shanann was doing her Thrive business sales. It's a basically sell from home pyramid scheme, and I don't know what it is. I've met a couple of people over the years that have done this stuff, and I don't know if they're talking about Amway or this Thrive or something, but it becomes all-consuming, and their friends are all bombarded with this information that they want to share, and it's going to change their life, etc. Now, Chris Watts was obviously working in the oil fields, basically as a roustabout, fixing repairs that needed to be done. He was working for a very reputable company, but although he's making good money, they obviously were living beyond their means. And some of the things that weren't necessarily made available kind of to the general public, and unless you had access to the discovery in this particular case, all of the discovery, it's very clear that they were tapped out, all right? When the police first entered the house, when the reports were made regarding Shanann and the children being missing, as you all know from the videos, Chris Watts comes home, and from the body cam videos, the police walk through the house with him, and they're trying to see if anything's missing, okay? And the cops ultimately, they're there, and they're looking through some of the bills. Now, it may not seem like much, but there's a medical bill here from South Denver Neurosurgery, and it's only a $270 bill. You think, oh, that's not too much, that's not too bad, what's the big deal? Well, it's obvious when you look at the credit card statements that were produced in this particular case, and we'll redact the credit card numbers, but their cards were tapped out, and we're not talking huge lines of credit here. One card had a $3,000 limit in this particular case, but the balance was $2,846, okay? So they had a whole $53 of available credit, and they were making $84 minimum payments, which basically, they were just barely getting by. So it's understandable when Shanann sees that Chris Watts is out spending 60 some odd dollars at a restaurant, which ultimately turns out to be dinner with his mistress, that she kind of probably loses her temper a little bit and just gets upset. Why is he, buying beers for everybody? Why? Because they're broke. Okay. The other one is another credit card statement that they had here from Americ Bank, and same thing. This thing has a whole credit line of $600, and they had $555 used on it. Now, so this is not exactly, high living on the hog. but that's what they were doing. And one of the credit cards actually shows that it was for her parents. So they had got her a credit card, but it was addressed to the parents in their name, and she was obviously must have been using it, but it was tapped out. Now, their home doesn't necessarily look like, it's furnished extravagantly in any way, and some people thought it was nice, some people thought it was hideous. It is what it is. But, they bought this house, and here in Colorado, if you're familiar with Colorado in some ways, obviously the closer you get to the downtown Denver area, the more expensive things are. The more you go north, the more home that you can get for the money. That big house, 4 or 5, not even a finished basement, I think I saw it was, $500,000 or something along those lines. If you were to buy the same house in Denver, it'd probably be over $1 million. And, the car, I've seen questions of whether the Lexus that was owned or driven by Shanann, whether that was provided by Thrive or whether it was a lease. But the reality of it looks like some sort of perhaps provided by them, but they didn't have that. He didn't have an extra car. These people were strapped. They were living from paycheck to paycheck. Now, Chris Watts obviously gave signs to the police early on that he was guilty. He did not act the way one would normally react if your wife and children were reported missing. He comes home. Very kind of nonchalant. Yeah, go ahead and take a look around. When the police officers, you see them there with their body cams, he's looking at his cell phone. When they go next door to the neighbors to look at the videos of their security cameras, once again, he's looking at his videos. The cops kind of inquire, yeah, we're going through a divorce. Not really sure, but it's all amicable. In the meantime, there's nothing to indicate that Shanann was just going to get up and walk away and leave. Okay, first of all, her purse was there. Look at the photograph of her purse. Her medicine for nausea is there. If you look at the house, and I don't know exactly who was the organizational freak in this particular situation, but it was obviously organized rather meticulously. When you look in the pantry, the photos, everything is in its place. Everything's has a place. My pantry looks like that for about a week, and then things get put back and forth. When the police officers go through the house and they're going through the closet, the closet is basically a huge closet, maybe even looks like a room for some people, and all of her clothes are there. You couldn't tell if she had taken anything, but it was very obvious that throughout the tour of the house that Shanann is very organized, meticulous, and very ordered in the way she does things. Just you can notice that by her closet, the way things are organized. And there's nothing missing to say that she would leave. There's pictures of her shoes that she has on this stand or rack in the closet, and everything's there. It's not like, if I'm leaving, if I'm going to leave this guy, I'm going to take this and this pair of shoes. Nothing there. When they walk in, the officers are there. And the bedroom, it looks basically pretty normal, although the comforter doesn't have a comforter on it. And then when you look at the photographs of the room, it's almost staged that her wedding ring is right there on the nightstand, like she was just somehow going to leave her wedding ring and leave with nothing. Remember, she had little to nothing. As far as we can tell, they were basically broke. They were living on his paycheck and maybe her commission sales on this Thrive multi-level marketing thing that they were doing. She had been home with her parents, but think about it. You think, this woman that has this stuff, her diamonds, her clothes, that she's just going to walk away and leave it? No way it's going to happen. And then to show that this is really somewhat of a crime of the moment, a heat of passion of the moment kind of thing, is when the police are going through and ultimately doing their search. Even in the kitchen, they find trash bags. And in the kitchen trash, they find these bed sheets. And when you look at these bed sheets, they obviously have stains of some type on them. And whether that is a blood-like substance or some other substance on the sheets and pillowcases, we don't know because the results have not been turned over. But it clearly shows that Chris Watts was not thinking clearly in the sense that he had this plan to get rid of the children, the bed sheets, anything along those lines. It was, for lack of a better term, maybe he thought about it, but this is my personal opinion, that something happened, that whether if she said something or they got into an argument, and he, for lack of a better term, just lost his shit, okay? And killed her. And then he has figured, oh man, now what am I going to do? Whether he was thinking, well, if their mother's not going to be here, the kids shouldn't be here. I personally don't think that he killed the children first. That's my only thought on that. I have no reason to do it other than what I've seen by looking through the evidence here. The discovery in this particular case, there was nothing that was planned out. It wasn't meticulously planned like somebody who was going to do something and truly trying to get away with it. This was something that had happened, and he was trying to make the best of it he could, and he was failing miserably. The whole plan of going to get the bodies out of the house, and then he takes them to his work site, makes no sense whatsoever, all right? There's no sense to that at all. Then he perpetrates this fraud to the police that he has no idea, everything's fine.
I hope that she's somewhere safe right now and with the kids. But, I mean, could she just taken off? I don't know. But if somebody has her and they're not safe, like, I want them back now.
But in the meantime, he's, canceling the kids' school for daycare. It makes no sense. There was no planning involved in this one way. He was simply reacting. He was not controlling the situation. And when you see his conversation with the news media, you see his conversation with the detectives, he's not concerned. He's not like, hey, we need to go out there and start looking for these kids. Oh my gosh, where are my kids? My God, my children are gone. Because he knows they're gone. He knows they're not coming back, okay? And this man, Chris Watts, is not a very sophisticated man when it comes to legal issues. Anyone worth their salt, anyone who's ever watched a TV show is advised of your rights via Miranda, that is your cue to talk with an attorney. I've had clients that have had a literally second or third, sixth grade education that can figure that out and say, you know what, maybe I should probably talk to somebody. This Watts guy, we went through multiple interviews, talked to the police, and did everything wrong from the criminal defense perspective. These police officers were good in the sense that they were able to get him talking. That polygraph examination that he did, oh my gosh, that is a defense attorney's nightmare. You just shut up every time I watch that, because that is the classic Reid interrogation technique method. It's to get them talking. And what does that Reid interrogation technique say? Basically, if you can get them to admit something, but maybe it was minimized or he had some reason or justification for it, you've at least got them to admit to the crime. So they said, well, maybe Shanann was the one that hurt the children.
Someone made a mistake, whether it was you or Shanann. And you either cleaned up after Shanann or you made the mistake. And I mean, I want to believe that maybe Shanann did it and you felt compelled to fix this so Shanann didn't look bad. That's what I want to believe. But I don't know, you're not telling me that, so it makes me think the worst. Like, did you do that to all three of them?
I did not do anything to these kids. Not do anything.
What did Shanann do to them? Tell us, Chris. Chicks are crazy.
Can I talk to my dad or something?
Absolutely.
Come.
Do you want to bring him in here?
No, I just can't talk to my dad. I flew across the country.
And he jumped on that. And being the unsophisticated person that he was, he said, yeah, that's it. She hurt the children, and therefore I have to hurt her. And what do they have? At that point, they have a confession. What did they have prior to that? Nothing. Did they have an arrest? No. Because Do they think he did it? Yes. Did they think that he was involved? Yes. Was he the prime suspect immediately because he was the husband and they were going through a divorce? And then, they find out he has a mistress on the side and none of his stories make sense and they find the sheets there and nothing in his story makes sense whatsoever? Yes. Nothing there to arrest him until he confessed. Which brings us quickly to the Kelsey Berreth case. Kelsey Berreth's, whether it's his boyfriend, father of her child, ex-fiance, doesn't matter, okay? He's been charged with felony murder and first-degree murder as it relates to Kelsey Berreth. The police have charged him, but he's done, for lack of a better term, everything right as it relates to a criminal defense perspective, okay? This man, whether you like it or not, and I'm not saying I'm his fan, I'm not saying he's going to get off, but I'm saying from a criminal defense perspective on what we know so far, Mr. Frazee has done it right. There's nothing to indicate that he, other than he was the last one with her, that he harmed her. Now, there's been talk, and we don't know, but they've gone to Miss Berreth's residence on a couple of occasions. Who knows what has turned up there? But what are they going to find? DNA evidence there? Well, he's probably been there before. He's gone there to pick up his child. Not a big deal as far as I see that. If they find any serology evidence, what is it, blood? Oh my gosh, somebody find their own blood in their own apartment? Not particularly concerned about that. Was something cleaned up? I don't know. People clean up. There's been talk about these cell phones, whether there's some sort of text messages between maybe Mr. Frazee and an accomplice. But either way, they haven't turned it over, and it's not some smoking gun that the police are saying, we've got this guy so locked tight that we're going to release the affidavit for arrest warrant. They don't even want to do that. They say it's citing officer safety, but it's ridiculous. The public has a right to know what is going on in these cases, and hopefully when he has his preliminary hearing in 2 weeks, we start getting some answers in this particular case. Now, the district attorney in the Frazee case has decided to charge without a body.
Patrick Frazee was charged this morning with first-degree murder and solicitation for first-degree murder. That is what he was booked in on.
And you can do it, and I've talked about this. You can do it, but they have a difficult road ahead. Like I said, if you look at the Watts case, they didn't arrest this man until he confessed, and they had bodies. It matters. It matters absolutely, because up to that point, it could have just been, Shanann Watts walked out, took her kids, and didn't want anything to do with Chris Watts any further, and that was it. Until they had those bodies, no one can absolutely be certain that somebody is in fact dead unless there's a statement of admission by a defendant to someone, whether it's the police, a friend, a family member. Any of those statements can do. But from what we know right now, there's nothing like that in Frazee. I think their attorneys are kind of sitting back, reviewing the affidavit, reviewing the discovery, probably going to be some cell phone data, but even that's going to be real difficult to work with unless, and I mean difficult to work with in the sense for the prosecution to say he is guilty, because those records simply mean that calls were made. It doesn't say who did it. It doesn't say where it was. It's going to be very, very difficult. So Mr. Frazee has kept his mouth shut. He retained counsel early on. He through attorneys, everyone knew that he was exercising all of his rights. He wasn't waiving any privileges. He wasn't talking to anyone.
Is there anything you want to say, sir? There's nothing you'd like to say? Can you talk to me? Is there anything you'd like to say, Patrick? Why haven't you spoken out about Kelsey, Patrick?
And even when he could no longer afford private counsel, he has gone with the public defender's office. And they have asserted his rights and made sure that he is not going to speak with anyone and no one's going to go talk to anyone in that house. And I'm sure the family, the mother, any family members he may have are not talking to the police either. And if they are, it's of limited knowledge. they've dug up a couple of things on a property, but no sign of any body whatsoever. I'm not trying to condone it. I'm just simply trying to say, for you crime talk aficionados, you people that love this crime stuff, this is a case, really, at this point, of a whodunit. Now, Mr. Frazee's case has a felony murder charge, which is allegedly a burglary, and they say they're alleging a theft. So someone went in, stole something, and took it, and in the commission of that burglary, somebody died, i.e. Miss Berreth. But weak. What evidence do they have that it actually took place? What evidence do they have that somebody went in without permission with the intent to commit a crime therein, Miss Berreth's residence? It's going to be very tough to show or to prove, at least based upon what we have seen. So I know some of you are tired of the Watts case. The Frazee case is really just getting going, but I think it's a nice comparison of what somebody does when they want to exercise their legal rights, keep their mouth shut, even if they are absolutely innocent. And like I said, Mr. Frazee is given the presumption of innocence. We are not saying he's done anything. And frankly, if he's done nothing wrong, he has nothing to prove. One of the fundamental concepts of our judicial system is that if you make the allegation, you have to prove it. The defendant does not have to prove himself guilty. And in this particular case, he's just sitting back saying, I don't think you have enough. I don't think you have enough. And frankly, at this point, I don't think he has enough. The standard of proof to get arrested is simply that of probable cause. Would a reasonable person believe that you may have committed a crime or a crime has been committed and that you may have had something to do with it? Very, very low standard of proof. Not proof beyond a reasonable doubt, which is not a vague, imaginary, or speculative doubt, but a doubt that would cause people to pause in matters of great importance. You don't know that somebody's dead yet. Unless we get some information here soon, Mr. Frazee, I think, may just need to sit back and wait for his trial and probably demand a speedy trial so that this matter can be resolved as expeditiously as possible. My advice for anyone, if you're ever charged with a murder case, is you try to go on your first setting if possible. And the reason being is the government is like a big steamroller. They're a little slow to get going, but once they're rolling, you don't want to stand in front of it. And don't give them time to get all this stuff done. I mean, remember, they've had time to investigate. Mr. Frazee has all his stuff turned over to him, but it's delayed. Hopefully his investigators, and I'm sure they are out there double-checking everything and trying to find other alternate suspects or people that would have had any opportunity to do anything with this. And in today's world, who knows? If you look at the Jamie Kloss case, this guy basically picks her out, goes, kills her family, kidnaps her, and keeps her in a cabin for 80-some days. Are you kidding me? How do you know, as a defense attorney, you're going to say, how do you know that isn't a similar situation? Somebody came and snatched her and took her away, and Mr. Frazee just happened to be the last one there. Ladies and gentlemen, it's going to be an interesting case to follow. So I appreciate you watching the channel. We know there are other channels out there, so we appreciate the fact that you watch us. Please like the channel. Please subscribe. And if you'd like to get notifications of when we come out with a new video, hit the little bell so that you get that and it goes straight to your inbox. Thank you for watching Crime Talk. This has been Scott Reisch. Have a great day.